today we are doing something a little bit different. We're doing a podcast with Dr. Nicholas Santino. He is a doctor of sports and exercise psychology, and he serves as the vice president and director of coaching at CEP Mindset. Their link to the channel will be in the description of the video. CEP Mindset is one of North America's largest mental performance coaching firms. In addition to overseeing daily operations and maintaining coaching standards across a team of 20 plus coaches, he works directly with athletes as a mental performance coach. His approach enables them to manage the pressures of elite performance, stay present in competition, and elevate their performance to the next level. Nick, for people who don't know you, walk us through anything else in your background. What else are you credentialed in? What expectations do you think shape the way that you view performance? Just tell us the story about yourself. Anything that I didn't say.
Appreciate you having me on. I'm excited for today's conversation.
For sure.
More about myself. So I'm from Toronto, Canada. What we do up here is we play a whole lot of hockey.
Yeah.
So that's where most of my athletic experience comes into play. But I am the Swiss Army knife of CP Mindset, meaning I work with the greatest variety of different athletes. I pride myself quite a bit on my ability to take what I know about sport and performance psychology and transfer it across various sports. So I'm here today because I work for a bunch of MMA guys, as well as boxers, kickboxing, et cetera, various combat sports. So
Sure.
I'm excited to share what I know about performance psychology. I'm excited to share about my experiences outside and within the combat sports world. And yeah, man, let's go from there.
So first, for the people who don't know about CEP Mindset, how did you first get into CEP? What pulled you towards it? What about what they were doing over there really attracted you to work with them?
So I had a great privilege of joining before we actually had the firm. I met Dr. Cassidy Preston, our founder and CEO, the year that he graduated from his PhD. I was kicking in to my master's program at the same school. So I'm 9 years younger than him. So I kind of caught him on the tail end as I was joining my graduate education. I talked to him. I heard he had this idea. I asked if he could join. He said, "Man, there's no business. I just have an idea. I'm just getting started." So I was young, living from home back in the day. And, I had a full-time job serving. So I was serving and waiting tables and bartending and doing all that. I was a young fella trying to make some scratch on the side. And I'm like, "Man, you don't need to pay me. Can I hang out?" And he goes, "I guess you could hang out."
Yeah.
So I spent these past 7 years now, since March of 2019. So I just hit my 7-year mark, helping Cassidy turn this idea into a full functioning business. So what interested me was just a man that I connected with. He was, 9 years ahead of me. He was on the other side of the PhD, and I was just entering the master's.
Right.
And I didn't fit in too well in the academic world. I'm a little bit loud and rough around the edges, and you have to be a little bit more quiet and tamed in that world. And I quickly found out that world wasn't necessarily for me. So when I saw this guy with this idea, I said, "Man, let me help you make this idea a reality." And I spent the first 3 years basically working for free on the athlete side of things, but also helping develop all the website and the marketing and the advertisement and the PDFs and all the things that come with what a business actually entails. Which I knew nothing, and I was like, "What does a business entail? Let's find out." This is pre-AI days, so
right. I think we're similar in that. I think we're similar in that way where you had mentioned, the traditional way that people will go about doing things and structuring things in that academic world. Like you said, with AI now, with those different things, it's a different world now. The education we have accessible, the type of format that we can go about approaching with different athletes and even for ourselves, I think is interesting how you guys go about doing it. When I first stumbled upon your content, again, for anybody else who doesn't know a lot about you guys, if you had to break the CEP mindset system into its core beliefs, what would you say they are?
4 fundamentals. That's what I would say they are. So I'll talk a lot about the 4 fundamentals. We could break them down. We could get pretty X's and O's a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's take a step back. Let's take a step back of what is the type of athlete that tends to come to us? And what are maybe the concerns that they're having that makes them think about us in our firm? So
for sure.
Two main characteristics that often stand out about the athletes we work with across all of our coaches. They're usually quite resilient
Mm.
and they're usually quite disciplined. Those are their two greatest psychological attributes. Not everyone, brother. A lot of people come to us,
Yeah.
they think they're resilient, they think they're disciplined,
Yeah.
and sometimes we have to open their eyes to how resilient and how disciplined other athletes are and their
For sure.
peers are and how they need
For
to get
sure.
better alignment. But that honestly isn't the case. So if we think about what the zone is or what a strong mindset is, there's actually 7 mental skills. 2 of them are that discipline and resilience I was just mentioning. And those are usually athletes' strongest attributes, psychologically speaking. The
Right.
other ones that tend to be the pain points that make athletes reach out to us to go work on our system, it's the inability to focus during high pressure situations and the inability to let go of the pressure of results. That,
Yeah.
I need that point, I need that win, I need that recognition, whatever that might be. And it just gets dragged into performance, which is a problem, of course. Not that we don't want athletes goal setting and prioritizing
Right.
and thinking about outcomes. We are not here. I know everyone thinks we're like the process guys, don't think about outcomes.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
But in combat sports, if I'm in the ring or in the cage or on the mat, I don't want to be thinking about outcomes right there and then. I want to
For
be
sure.
able to detach from that. So that's a
For sure.
major concern that athletes come in with. The second major concern that athletes come in with is composure issues, the inability to manage the emotions. So I might have the thoughts regarding
Right.
the outcomes and the pressures and what I
Right.
need to do. But then there's also the whole emotional element of overthinking and forcing things, pushing things,
Right.
the inability to manage the emotions that come with that stressor. The third thing, which is the most common, is confidence issues. And if
Yeah.
you want to ramble on confidence, I have a whole little speech I can
Yeah.
give you. But we could talk some trash about confidence. But confidence issues. And athletes have 2 issues with confidence. They're either yo-yo athletes. I'm sick, I'm trash, I'm sick, I'm trash. I go out there, I have a great round, I'm the man, I'm going to destroy this guy. Go back out there, fall apart, right? Get too inflated. and
What
then crash
we
too
like
much.
to call, or at least like with fight tech, the fight tech part of the integrated system, we call it the Predator versus the Terminator. If you watch the Predator movies, he's hunting, and things get hard, and then he gives up, he goes. But if you're a Terminator, you see guys, they keep trudging on and on, round and round, no matter what type of thing they're going through. They keep believing in themselves. They keep pushing. They get the job done. So I like that little parallel. I'm going to steal that the yo-yo line there too. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So that's a common one. The other one is less commonly reported, but it's true for every elite athlete, which is they're ridiculously hard on themselves. Now, I'm not here to tell athletes to not be hard on themselves. If I'm a combat sports athlete and I'm standing in front of another person who has trained specifically to beat the crap out of me and dominate me, right? I want to be very hard on myself leading up into that moment and not be like, oh, everything's going to be okay. Everything might not be okay. I want to be hard on myself, but I don't want to beat myself up. There's a difference there. Hard on myself versus beat myself up. So a lot of athletes are yo-yo or beating. So now, Thor, inability to manage our focus. Inability to manage our composure and our emotion. Inability to believe and trust in myself. If we accumulate those 3 things together, that leads to being distracted and stressed. This feeling of being consumed, being pulled out of the moment and not being able to stay centered, block out the noise, manage the stress, and concentrate. So that's where we come in, and that's where our system comes in, and we could ramble about our system here a little bit, but that's the type of athlete. They're resilient, they're pushing forward, they're disciplined, they're going to wake up, they're going to, maybe they'll hit one snooze, but they'll hit the one snooze, they'll get up, they'll go put in the work. But how do I deal with the focus, the composure, the confidence, the centeredness, the ability to go from being consumed by the pressures of elite performance to immersed in the moment? And that's where we step in. That's where our system steps in.
I want to actually go a little bit deeper on the struggles that are there for athletes whenever all those things can get overwhelming, because I find that for a lot of athletes, having a purpose, not a lot of, you'll talk to people, you'll hear from people, you'll see interviews, and I always really like to look for the why, right? Like, why are you doing this? You watch somebody like Volkanovski in the UFC. He's like, I do this for my family. Israel Adesanya, he says he likes to authentically express himself. So for you and what you guys have found, how do any of your athletes actually find purpose in competing, and where does that why come from?
I have two main lines of thinking. So we'll go the big picture line of thinking, and then I'll talk a little bit of trash around that big
Perfect.
thinking.
Yeah,
Okay?
perfect.
So what's interesting about sports that is very different than a lot of other professions
Yeah.
is you're not ordinarily 6, 7, 8 years old sitting in front of a TV watching someone compete wearing their jersey and looking at them and be like, wow, like I want to be them. I have this dream. I have this
Right.
fantasy. Now, in the combat sports, it was less so in the past. It was mostly, if you're watching media and stuff, it was mostly boxing, right?
Right.
Nowadays, with obviously streaming and with the UFC, there's so much opportunity in combat sports
For sure.
to have that dream that other athletes had in football and in soccer and in hockey, etc. Right,
Yeah.
where combat sports necessarily didn't have that ability to reach people at
Right.
a young age everywhere. But now that's not the case.
Right.
Now so many people are involved in it. There's all these young kids. So why do people get into it? Well, their parent either made them get into it or they saw it on TV and it was all a dream or a fantasy. And again, less so in combat sports, but I think in the future, combat sports, especially with the UFC leading the way, is getting more and more like the more, the major four, the baseball, the football,
For sure.
etc., right?
For sure.
So,
yeah.
so their why ordinarily starts, why? Well, I've always done this. Why? Well, my dad made me do it. He does it. I do it. Or why? My brother. For me, why did I play hockey? My brother. I admired my brother. I want to be like my brother. And I just copied everything he did. And then as they get older, Thor, what is so frustrating for them is they think their why is the same. Well, why am I pushing to become a college level wrestler? Why am I pushing? But like, well, it's what I've always done. Doing something because you've always done it is such a crappy reason to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Why do I do it? Oh, to make my dad happy. Pretty good. Oh, he was a college wrestler. I want to be a college wrestler, for example. Yeah, pretty good. Family connection, community. It's all right, but it's not true. It's not true. It's what ends up happening is as you hit 15, 16, 17, 20, when you're into college and the semi-pros and the pro level, your why starts to change.
Yeah.
But these guys and girls are holding on to their childhood why, their dreams, their fantasies. Brother, I love what I do. This is I'm so happy with where my life is right now. I hope it's not ended. But where my childhood ended into adulthood. I'm so happy it went in that direction. But I didn't fantasize about that when I was 8. So I never had to rip the old why out and replace it. I was a blank canvas. I had an opportunity I'm a grown man making deliberate choices, and this is why I'm doing it. Whereas in sport, it's not that. So that's the main issue is your why is usually childlike, fantasy-like. And then as you get older, because if you're an elite level athlete, you probably, not everyone, but probably have been doing it since you were a kid. So that's one element. I'll kick back to you before I kind of talk a little trash about it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that there's maybe you have an external why, you have internal why. So if you look at a lot of great athletes, I think back to Cody Garbrandt. He's lesser known in some areas of the world. He was a great fighter, and he still fights, I believe. But there was a series of fights where he was working to become the champion, I believe, of his weight class, and he was dealing with a Make-A-Wish kid, if I'm not mistaken, and the kid had either leukemia or cancer, I can't quite remember, and Cody promised him, if you hold on, and if you keep going, you keep fighting, because I think the kid didn't want to continue with the treatment anymore. He said, if you keep going, I will take you with me to when I win the belt. And so Cody won the belt, and he put on a spectacular performance. And then after that happened, I can't recall if the kid ended up passing away or not, but regardless, that drive internally was not there anymore. It was an internal thing of I am setting an example, not only for myself, showing myself that I can do this, but also for this kid, it's an internal thing. It's a why. Your purpose there is internally driven. Then you see a lot of fighters who go out there, I think, and it's all about, I just want to make money. And I am doing this because I want to prove to other people that I'm good enough. And it's very externally driven. So for a lot of people, I think looking to the external world for validation or reassurance of something and letting that be the reason to pull you into a career where you can have life-changing differences in your brain, in your body, it would not be the best decision. I think that's why we see a lot of people that might turn to coaching or might turn to other sorts of things because they're aware of that. I think that the biggest difference between the people who, not to say there isn't exceptions, but the biggest difference between the most people who have championship success and fantastic performances is being driven internally rather than I'm doing this for these people because these people are watching, because I don't actually believe this about myself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And the reality is there's always going to be both internal and external. We
For
live in
sure.
a social world. We are
For
social
sure.
creatures. Money matters, reputation
Yes.
matters, respect matters.
For sure.
These elements matter, and it's about how do you balance that and not
For sure.
overcorrect in each way. And as you mentioned with that one fighter, once that source of intrinsic motivation was removed, crash occurred. And maybe I'm overstepping, I don't know the story, but things change. Let's go with that, like a little softer language. And that's the difference between short term and long term, right? That was always a short term, and that you could burn the candles at both ends, for a lack of a better term, in that regard, and reach new heights, but it isn't sustainable. So let's actually talk a little trash about purpose for a second.
For sure.
So like I said, what's interesting about sport is purpose starts very young because you have dreams and fantasies. As you get older and rise the ranks, purpose starts changing. You're holding on to the past purposes. You're not sure what new purpose it is. It becomes confusing and stressful and chaotic. I have all this old purpose, all this new purpose, because hey, if you start fighting and you're 20, or not start, but you start fighting professionally and you're 22 and you got, I want to marry this girl or marry this guy and I want to get this going and have a family, like, hey, I got to make some money in a modern world in hyperinflation. You definitely got to make some money, right? So these other purposes start coming to the surface. So if someone is out there listening right now and they're like, where do I start with purpose when I go work on my mindset? I would say, absolutely not, bro. Grab it and kick it out. And the reason I say that, brother, is there's so much work to do to garner increased awareness about your mindset, your world internally, and how your thoughts and feelings and actions are all mixing together before you should ever consider your purpose. I believe having a purpose is valuable. I don't believe in starting there. It's kind of like, and that's the difference between, in my opinion, a major difference between mental performance coaching and classic therapy. So if you go into classic therapy, on day one, when you meet a therapist, it is possible, not all therapists are going to do this, but it's more likely than not, that you're going to be talking about some serious, deep level stuff. And the objective is, let's go deep and let's start digging and unraveling things. That's not mental performance coaching, right? So what therapy does is they try to dig, and then get you back out of that hole. There's a time and place for that. I'm not against it, but that's not what I do. That's not what I believe in when it comes to performance. Instead, we do the opposite. We start at the surface. Start in the moment. Start with, I'm just here right now. No big questions. No, like, I don't want to know about your childhood trauma. We'll get there. I'm open to it. If we build a relationship and you think that's something to share with me, I have some long-term athletes that I work with. Sometimes we have meetings and conversations, rather, where it is 100% not about their sport whatsoever. It's about their friends or their partners or money or whatever, like, you know, really, really challenging personal topics. But again, we get there. So, but where do you start? You start in the moment, Thor. You start with a reset routine. If we go back to that initial comment you had like a couple minutes ago regarding, what is the CEP system? Well, for me, the system is about now or never. It's about the now. It's about that feeling of now or never. It's from the now. Don't dig deep and come back out. Start at the surface and, can I have a guy go to training right?
Yeah.
And go out there and instead of having their thoughts and feelings in action, they call them TFA for the simplicity, okay? It's going to get pulled by distractions and stressors, right? Distractions
Yeah.
are the things that are irrelevant to your training and to your performance, but just
Mm.
consume your mind. Some things happening in life, on the news, whatever. And
Yeah.
then stressors are sport performance related elements. We have distractions, we have stressors, our TFA is getting pulled. Where our system comes in is let's start there. And you just go out to training today and feel like you increase your ability to pick up when your TFA got pulled and come back to the moment and get back to action. Come to the now, go to the next. Instead of getting pulled away from the now and not knowing where you are, come back to the now, move to the next. And that is our fundamental rhythm. I call that the now next rhythm.
Mm.
Now next, now next.
Hmm.
And when guys come work with me, that's where we start. We don't start with the purpose. We don't start deep. We'll get there.
You
And
build
of
to it.
course,
Yeah.
we build to it. And of course, there's an element of vulnerability. Thor, I am asking about
For
your
sure.
thoughts and your feelings, and so there's an element. But I allow the boys to come to me with that deeper stuff. Why? Or if they don't come to me, sooner or later we'll get there once
Yeah.
we start really ingraining the system that allows you to manage the moment. And the frontline defense, brother, of that system is what
Yeah.
I was mentioning, that reset routine of coming to the now, getting ready for the next. That's the difference between mental performance coaching versus therapy. Not the difference, but
Yeah.
a major difference.
A major difference. Yeah. Yeah. I like that distinction. I always have had deep discussion. I like to understand the deeper sides of fighters, especially. I think the psyche of them is so fascinating, and like what empowers them, how they got into fighting. But I do agree, I think for the most part, that you have to build to that if you're going to get there. Work with the immediate thing that is presented, build off of that. And if there's something on a deeper level that is holding them back, then that's something you can work to. But it could be something on a deeper level that doesn't need addressing necessarily, and that you can overcome that in a quicker, more efficient fashion. You had mentioned looking up, aspiring to your brother, playing hockey, and then, and ending up very happy where you are now. As a coach yourself, I'd like to know your perspective on how someone decides whether they're wired to be a coach versus an athlete.
When I'm working with my athletes, it's usually the crossroad in life that they don't choose to find themselves at, and it's just the world brings them to that crossroads. I think for me, not that I don't even see myself as a coach. Like, obviously I'm a coach, I'm here to help athletes, but like, I don't see myself as support. I see myself as the central figure. As an athlete, as you're developing, as you're rising the ranks, you're going through that process. A lot of athletes will become coaches because either they're just not meant for it. They're like, I'm not really down to participate in all the things I need to do, but I still
Yeah.
love the environment and the culture, and I want to be a
Yeah.
part of it in a different way. Other guys or girls go quite far. They get hurt, situations change, they become coaching because they want to stay
Yeah.
in. I bowed out at 17 years old, and the reason I bowed out is I saw my brother literally broke his back playing hockey, 2 bad knees, playing in non-sanctioned leagues, the hospital visits, the time on the road, all this stuff, and I was like, you know what, I'm good at school, like.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I was getting into sports psychology. I was just going towards psychology. And then
Yeah.
I refound this idea because, again, I'm getting a little old, Thor. Back in my day, there was no sports psychology, really.
Right. Yeah.
10, 12 years ago, there was kind of hints at it, but like, oh, that's for the pros, not for anyone
Right.
else, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't have the exposure. So with my athletes, I find that similar. It's like they're all in. Let's go. And then life happens. Life happens. Either they're like, you know what, like I'm good at these other things and I'm actually like ready to transition. And either they transition away from the sport or towards a coach. I think no matter what, brother, you want to be the central figure of your story. And that's how I take it. Like, of course, if you are an athlete on the other side of the screen right now, I'm here to support you. And when I'm coaching, I'm all about my athlete, of course. But I'm here to perform, and what I get obsessed about, what I love, and what I focus in on is just like that athlete when they're
Yeah.
in the ring, right? They're performing. Well, when I'm here across from you, this is my performance, brother. This is what
Yeah.
I do. I
I
talk
love
for a
that.
living. I understand for a living.
I've never looked at it that way. Everybody is performing in this game, regardless of what you're doing. It's just the lens
Everyone,
you take to it.
everyone,
Everyone.
everyone. So the most important thing, not the most important, but a very, very important thing to remember is there is no such thing as sports psychology. I got my PhD. I'm looking at the thing on the wall, dude. I got my letters in it. But there is no such thing. There's a such
Yeah.
thing as performance psychology, meaning if you want to have the mindset that you want to have in order to perform at your highest level, there's a whole body of knowledge on that,
Yeah.
right? But there's no such thing as sports psychology. It's just performance psychology transferred to the athletic
Hmm.
world. So
Hmm.
I'll work with doctors, lawyers, engineers,
Hmm.
medical students. There's all these I work with business people as well, day
Yeah.
traders, hedge funds
Because it's all
managers.
performance.
It's all performance. I'm no athlete. Trust me, you put me on the map. This is my performance. I'm doing the exact same thing that an athlete's trying to do, psychologically speaking, which is clear my mind, be present, and commit to the TFA I want to have right here, right now.
So you're saying if you had the ability to rewire yourself to be an athlete at the highest level, would you or you would not? And why or why not?
I would not. I mean, the money's usually good at the highest level. So again, to go back to the extrinsic stuff. I'm not here to tell anyone that I'm
Yeah.
not extrinsically motivated myself. I'm
Right.
both internally and externally. So I wouldn't mind the money, but man, I am so fascinated by my line of work. I'm so fascinated about the human experience and about appreciating it. Like I'm in love with that performance. It's the
Yeah.
same thing that an athlete gets out of performing at their highest level, I get out of performing at my highest level. And I think that's important to recognize. I work with also entrepreneurs that are like the furthest thing from an athlete, the
Yeah.
furthest thing from an athlete. And I use 100% of the same tools and ideas in order to
Yeah.
support an athlete at the highest professional level than I do with a guy running a small to medium sized business or a very large, multi-million dollar business. It's like it doesn't matter if it's a 14-year-old or a 25-year-old athlete.
Yeah.
If it's a guy running a $1 million business versus $100 million business, obviously, Thor, you have to make some adjustments depending on the context.
Right.
But 95% is the exact same. That's just a human who is trying to perform at their highest level. And the
Yeah.
principles apply as long as you're good. That's why I call myself the Swiss Army knife. As long as you're good as a coach to be
Yeah.
able to adapt the context and manipulate things to fit the context, then it's all good, brother. It's just a
Yeah.
performance.
I think a lot of people look at it like the coaches don't have that same credit and ability. And I actually wanted to talk a little bit more about that because I think with athletes or anybody for that matter, I think in whatever facet of life you're in, it still amazes me how Carl Jung's philosophy on the shadow holds up. For those of you who don't know, Carl Jung, he essentially had a philosophy that everybody has darker or repressed traits. The same way that you can't have light without dark, everybody has traits that they have disowned or pushed down that they don't think are socially acceptable. My belief is that athletes, especially combat sports athletes, can tap into those repressed traits and use it to make them better in their sport. I think how you had discussed earlier, a lot of athletes will get in their heads or overthink or stress out about, how do I let go of this? How do I let go of that? And I think a big part of letting go is accepting things that are not socially acceptable, like I am a violent person, and that's why I enjoy combat sports, because I like to watch that. I like to understand what technique can incapacitate the other person better. I like to break that down. And I think it applies for both coaches and athletes. And so there's certain things like that, that when it comes to the shadow, but I wanted to ask you, for the athletes that you work with, if you could tell us the story behind when you first realized that shadow or those traits were not something to eliminate, but something that they should harness.
Couldn't agree more. So, in a simple term, is expectations. I was actually just writing this into the book this morning before we were speaking. So let's talk about it. So when I first started out in the game of mental performance coaching, a lot of athletes were coming to me. They still do, but a lot of athletes were coming to me with this idea of, man, I have all these expectations. Like the world expects all these things of me. I expect all these things of me, and it's overwhelming and it's too pressure filled. And I used to tell me, oh, forget expectations. They're trash. It's like, no, man, they're real. right?
Yeah, they're real.
They're those shadow elements. Like, oh, the world expects me to not be violent, and this is a violent thing, right? So I should expect to not be violent. There's this conflict there, as
Yeah,
you are alluding to. We are not here to eliminate the human experience. We are not here to do that. We're here to appreciate and understand the human experience,
for sure.
learn how to build our awareness of that experience, accept and let go of that experience, and then influence that experience, right? So that's what mental toughness is in my books. It's awareness, acceptance, and influence of your thoughts, feelings, and actions. That's what we're here to do. Not here to run, just like expectations. We're not here to, oh, we're going to live a world with no expectations. We can't. Or we're going to live a world with no pressure. We can't. So what can we do? Awareness, acceptance, and influence. And to go back to the very start of our conversation, what's the CEP system? Well, the CEP system is what's called the performance cycle. The four fundamentals that I alluded to early on comprise what the performance cycle is. A mental prep routine to clear your mind and create the TFA you want before you go in. A reset routine to continuously clear your mind and stay the TFA you want.
Yeah.
That's during breathing, self-talk, imagery, simple stuff, of course, because you're in the middle of competition.
For sure.
After we use a scorecard to be able to reflect and see what we liked and didn't like. And all of this, Thor, cycles around what's called an alter ego. And for those of you who don't know what an alter ego is, Black Mamba mentality. That's the classic.
Dude, it's so funny. It's so funny you bring this up. Literally, my next question was going to be, how does the framework of the alter ego effect complement Jung's work? Which we're flowing right now. I can feel it. No, tell us more. Please continue. Yeah, this is a great point to harp on.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's this idea. So oftentimes people only create an alter ego or an identity of who they want to be. For example, like a Black Mamba, right? That's the positive identity on the court, Kobe Bryant. At CP, we like to do both. I like to do both the best self and the worst self.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I want to have that awareness of who don't I want to be and who do I want to be. So therefore, in my mental prep, I use breathing, self-talk, and imagery to let go of my worst self and create my best self. In my reset routine, I continuously breathe, self-talk, and do imagery, not chronically the whole time, but in the right moments at the right times in order to stay that best self, because you're going to start leaking towards that worst self, catch it, breathe, self-talk, come back, stay. And then after, scorecard allows you to learn about your best and worst self. So now we have this cycle, Thor, create, stay, learn. Create, stay, learn.
Yeah.
And that's how you prevent downward spirals of performance and promote upward spirals of performance, mentally speaking.
I believe that with the alter ego and becoming your best self, I think that there's something extremely powerful in understanding that your best self is not just these traits that are socially acceptable. I think that it's the integration of it and the understanding, accepting, and being able to, like you said, let go, enter your flow state, and be in that place where you can say, hey, I am a violent person, and that's what's making me so good in this domain. For people who don't know, I want you to touch a little bit on, or just give your thoughts on becoming your best self, because I think a lot of people will interpret that as, I am these things that are socially acceptable. I'm sociable and charismatic and this and that. And if you look at Kobe and Kobe's performance when he's on the court, or if you look at anybody like Mike Tyson or a Muhammad Ali, really they were arrogant in their domain of competition. People understanding that your best self isn't just the good stuff, it's also accepting that you have bad stuff. Not that either is necessarily a correct label, because when you use that aggression, that anger, that arrogance, and you're letting yourself be who you really are authentically, these people perform better. We can see it every time Kobe would step onto the court. We can see it every time Tyson would step into the ring. We could, this is it's viewable, it's visible.
Absolutely. So let's use Kobe's example.
Hmm.
So most people, when they come work with myself for CP Mindset, they're
Yeah,
coming in because they're overwhelmed, they're stressed, they're anxious, they're not trusting themselves, and they're having a hard time tapping into that level of intensity that they need. So they
yeah,
want help doing that. Now, that wasn't Kobe's example. So what happened with Kobe was he had no alter ego. He had a
yeah,
singular identity. He was a young fella who was exceptional at
mm,
basketball and was an absolute maniac.
yeah,
Okay. In the best way possible.
yeah,
Absolute maniac. Well, he thrived. He became a millionaire. He became a household name. He became one of the best guys to ever play basketball ever. He changed the game. Huge, huge, huge impact. Well, he had no on and off switch.
mm,
Therefore, it led to him. Again, I might be overstepping. I only know the you know the general elements of this, the public elements. I'm sure there's more details to this, so not to talk in vain about anyone who has passed, but
yeah,
that mindset kind of boiled over, not kind of did boil over outside of the arena and
yeah,
led to him having some marital issues, family issues. So him and his family went to go handle those issues because some things happened. Life at home wasn't going well. And as he was
right,
trying to resolve those issues and improve his home life, he had to become softer, lighter, quieter. He couldn't be the absolute maniac, lead by example guy that he was in the gym and on the
for
court.
sure,
And because he was taking that same mindset and bringing it home, but he had a wife and daughters, and like this is not going to work at home,
right,
right? And it didn't work at home, and it became an issue. So then he starts shifting to be able to be that kinder, gentler person that he needs to be
yeah,
as a husband and a father. Well, then he lost his spark. And that's where the Black Mamba comes in. He lost his spark.
yeah,
He was unable. He goes, well, I was always this guy. If I was, in the gym, at home, on the court, I was the same guy. That's the story of Mike Tyson. I'm always
yeah,
the same guy. It
yeah,
didn't end well for him. That's the
exactly,
story of Michael Jordan. It ended well for Jordan, but it didn't end well for Jordan. There was ups and downs and a
exactly.
lot of chaos.
It's the
Now, sorry,
it's
go ahead.
those, I was going to say, not to cut you off, it's those extremes. It's if you are always tapping into these traits that are not socially acceptable. You look at Mike Tyson, like the cussing, the vulgar language, the threatening people, the violence, that was phenomenal for him when he was in the ring, and then you're a
Mm-hmm.
terrible human being when you're doing that outside
Mm-hmm.
of that space.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that makes us noble people with good character is when we have the ability to go to that place, but instead are
Mm-hmm.
choosing to not access that when we are outside of a
Mm-hmm.
competitive realm. And I think, like you were just about to say, that was Mike Tyson. If you look at John Jones, like these people failed in their regular lives because they could not just keep it in the athletic
Mm-hmm.
domain. But please continue. I'm sorry to cut you off
Yeah.
there.
No, no worries. And that's absolute greatness. And I think it's really important to recognize that, like, hey, if you want to be remembered 500 years from now, you're going to have to destroy your own life.
Yeah,
Not that you're going to have, but it's most likely to happen because it's a certain level of greatness
for
that is
sure.
absurd. That's absurd. But then if you look at the hockey world, okay, Sidney Crosby is the gentleman of gentlemen. He is the man. He was the greatest thing since sliced bread, greatest thing since Wayne Gretzky in a long time. And he has none of that. And he has been able to achieve greatness without having to do that. Now, hockey isn't as popular around the world. There isn't as much money. There isn't as much fame. It's a different sport, right?
Yeah,
So it had a different outlook. But that's this idea. Let's just say you're not trying to be literally the Napoleon of whatever you're doing, and you're trying to just be a great, great, great professional. You're trying to compete at a national, international, professional level. Well,
yeah,
you don't need to go to that extreme. You really don't. And nor is it viable or valuable for you to do that. So instead, you want to have an awareness of who you don't want to be and who you do want to be. I also do this for my pros who have like families that they have to go back to. We
right.
create alter egos for when you're at your sport versus also when you're away
Yeah,
from your sport, right? A lot of even my guys in the business world, at work, they have to be a certain guy. On the mat, you have to be a certain guy. At home, you have to be a different guy. You don't have to be a different guy completely. You have to be a different version of who you are,
Yes.
because
Yeah,
the
exactly.
metrics are different, the expectations are different, the requirements of you are different. I'm not the same guy here as I'm talking with you as I am with, my fiance.
Right.
As I am with my friends. Not that I'm a two-faced guy, that I
Right.
just completely change,
No.
but there's elements that I dial up and dial down according
Yeah.
to the context that allow me to thrive in that environment,
Yeah.
right? And that's super important. And that's why you need to not only have that identity, who I don't want to be and who I do want to be, right? But I also have to have the system to become aware of them, accept them, and create him. And that's that mental prep, reset, reflection process
Yep.
I was talking to you about. All of those we go into detail with at CP Mindset. All of those are personalized for each individual athlete. Once again, there's a structured system that every athlete's getting, but the
Mm-hmm.
details of that become personalized. And to go back to our initial conversation regarding purpose, how I was like, yo, I respect purpose and it's
Yeah.
valuable, but we don't start there. And we had that
Right.
therapy versus mental performance element. The same thing is true with alter ego. You don't start with the alter ego. The reason is you don't have, if you start working on your mindset, you don't have enough awareness and ability to interact with your own TFA. For those of you that don't remember, thoughts, feelings, actions, TFA. Okay. You don't have the ability to have the level of awareness in order to create an alter ego that is genuine, that is concrete, that resonates and feels real and is real.
Yeah.
So the way I like to work with my athletes is from the moment backwards,
Hmm.
right? So we usually go through multiple weeks, around a month to 2 months before we even hit on this idea of identity and alter ego. And the
Yeah.
reason is, it's like, let's garner a greater ability to breathe, to talk to ourselves, to do imagery, to mentally prep, to
Yeah.
reset. Let's garner that ability for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Nothing too crazy, Thor. You don't want
Hmm.
to drag it on too long.
Right.
But,
Right.
for a month and a half, we're working on the details, the intellectualization of, okay, what do I do? How do I do it? And as I'm forming that process, Thor, now I'm garnering greater awareness. So now when we sit down and we start thinking about who do I want to be and who don't I want to be, and we develop the characteristics and we dive deep, well, now you and I have a relationship with one another, which is
Yeah.
valuable. We've got some wins with one another over the past month or so, and I have a better understanding of you, and you have a better understanding of you, and we are in alignment now. And now
Hmm.
we can go build that identity. And then what I also do is, once we do that, we roll that identity out. We practice it, we implement it, and then 3, 6, 9 months later, whatever, we check in on it. Does it still resonate? Does it not? Right?
Hmm.
Year over year, when I'm working with guys, like, okay, well, combat sports, of course, it's in relation to tournaments, but there's still like relative off season depending on the combat sports and on the travel and everything. So as we're teeing up for busy season, what
Hmm.
do? We sit down and we go back to that alter ego and we go,
Hmm.
does it still connect? Does it not connect? Right? Again, I've worked with some guys between 5 to 7 years. If you were 20 and now you're 25, or if you're 25 and single
Yeah.
and whatever, and now you're 30 and you're married and there's so many different elements of your life has changed. Hey man, you have changed. And maybe the alter ego
Yeah.
still connects.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it needs a complete rehaul. Maybe it just needs some minor edits. Right now I work with a high level hockey player who, we worked together for a year and a half. We took 6 months off. We started back up again. And one of the things we did was, like, we went to go check in. He goes, you know what? Like, yeah, it doesn't resonate. And
Yeah.
sure, that was like a year and a half ago. He's like, man, I used to love it, but now it feels kind of like I'm forcing it. Well, if we're forcing it, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's useless.
Yes. You have to
Right?
reassess it.
So
Absolutely.
we reassess,
I think
we check in.
I was going to say, I think that is phenomenal. Like the checking in. I don't think people will do that though. Like there's so many athletes I feel like that I see that hang on to like, this is what I was, or like I gotta be who I was there. But you're not. Your life is always changing. You're not the same athlete you are from your last performance because you're not the same human being you were from your last performance. And those alter ego traits, I think they change. I think a lot of people have the idea that it's like I'm getting this confidence. I don't have it as myself. I'm getting it, whereas you're actually accessing it. You've had it all along. you're bringing it out. You're letting it be expressed. I think there's, like we were talking about with in MMA, if somebody is, oh no, I'm not violent. I'm not violent outside of their sport. You are like, and this alter ego isn't making you violent. You are accessing violence that has always been there that you just disowned. But for a lot of people, like you said, they won't reassess that. Maybe at one point, the thing that they need to tap into and bring out in that alter ego is, let's just say, arrogance per se, is arrogance. And then they live life some more, and they have a family. All of this stuff happens, and they're like, I don't need to tap into that arrogance anymore. What I need to come out is belief, is ultimate belief in myself. I don't need to think I'm better. I just need to know that what I'm doing is absolutely correct with myself. And then it changes, and then that's what you're accessing in your alter ego. And I understand for a lot of athletes, I think that can be a scary thing. But I wonder if athletes will underperform because they're afraid of that intensity and afraid of seeing that. Am I off there, or do you concur with that?
I think in combat sports, yes. I think more so than other sports. If you go to football, I mean, if you're an O-line or D-line, if you're not violent, you're not nothing. Same thing in combat sports, right? If I'm not violent, I'm not anything. Now, it's a different type of violence, but it's still violence.
Right.
If you're a hockey player, I work with some boys who are like, hey man, standing in front of another grown man, bare knuckle fighting on ice is not easy, right?
Yeah.
There's boys who that's their job. That's what they do for a living, is they beat the crap out of guys going 30 kilometers an hour for the Americans, whatever that is. I'm Canadian, so kilometers an hour, right?
Yeah.
But 30, like, it's moving fast. They're heavy hitting. They're 230 pounds. It's a lot, right? And to stand there and grab onto another man's chest with no protection on your hands or on your face and to wail at each other is a very scary thing. So if you find yourself in more violent sports, most definitely it could be an element. But I would say more often than not, it's guys don't have checkout routines. So they're scared. If they're scared about the violence, they're not as scared about the violence on average to be violent here, right now, when it's okay to be violent. They're scared that they don't know how to turn it off. And the key is this: you don't need to turn it off. You need to dial it up and dial it down. Goes back to your point. It's not have or don't have, is or is not. That's fantasy nightmare. That's called dichotomous thinking. So let's talk about our thinking for a second. Let's ramble a bit on it. So our brain is fantastic. It's great. I love my brain. Sure. I'm sure you love yours. It's very valuable to us. Yeah.
For sure. Okay? Yes.
But it's imperfect. It's imperfect, meaning it has to process a lot. So it has to create these systems to manage how much it could process, because can't process everything all the time, Thor, because I'll just be processing and I can't even talk to you. So my brain has to choose what to process and when to process. These are called heuristics, shortcuts. That's all that term means. Shortcuts. Yeah. One of the shortcuts to process stuff is called dichotomous thinking. Di meaning two, cotomous meaning category. Two category thinking. So let's go through a fun exercise for the listeners here. So Thor, I'm either fast or
slow,
tall or short, skinny or
fat.
There we go. Thank you for not using a politically correct term.
No, no, for sure. No, we don't. Hey, for everybody watching, we don't keep it politically correct over here. We keep it authentic. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So and that's true, right, man? Like, you say, oh, that guy's tall. I get it. I don't need more information than that. But that's how our brain processes. So same thing. I either have that trait or don't have that trait.
Yeah.
I'm either experiencing it or not experiencing it. That doesn't work, because once I have two categories, Thor, then I have one's good, one's bad. That becomes a fantasy. That becomes a nightmare. That's where the yo-yo comes into play. I chase this and run away from that. Chase this, run away from that. And now I'm up and down and I'm chaotic. No, man. Every characteristic is on a spectrum. You could think of it as a bunch of dials. And your job is to know, okay, I could dial it down to like 0.5 if it goes from 0 to 10. I could dial it down to 0.5, but like I'm never going to dial it down to 0, because you can't. But I could turn it pretty much off, pretty much on, again, depending on the trait and all that stuff. There's a lot of elements there. But the point is, don't see things as either is or is not, this or that, because I have polarization and now I'm on an emotional roller coaster. Instead, brother, what we want to do is see everything as on a spectrum, and I could dial it up and I could dial it down. If we go back to your example of violence,
Yes.
right? The whole point is if I'm a professional combat sports athlete, I dial that up
Yeah.
deliberately, and
Yeah.
then I dial it down, right? Deliberately. I got to go home to my wife and my kids. I dial that down. I don't want to bring, but what a lot of guys go wrong with is they use that dichotomous thinking and be like, well,
Hmm.
if I'm that, then I can't not be that.
Yeah.
Well, why? Well, because they have no awareness of who they are and aren't, and they have no system to create and diffuse that identity. So it's
Hmm.
like, I need to have an identity on the mat. I need to have an identity at home. I need to have a system that allows me to check into that identity, create him, be him, stay him, learn about him, and then check out of that identity and check back into my other identity. Are they more similar than different? Absolutely, Thor. But
Hmm.
there's key elements of those two identities, for example, that make a large difference. In your example, violence. Here, I would need a lot. At home, I would need very little,
Hmm.
right? So,
Yes.
and again, you don't want to turn off that dial completely, because like, what happens if something happens at home? I need to be ready, intruders or crazy situations. Also,
Right.
conflict, right? Violence is that dial of conflict to the maximum extent, running hot at a 10, right?
Yeah.
You still need to be not confrontational, but ready to have conflict, right? If I'm a MMA competitor and I come home and I have a 3-year-old toddler, they're going to be not violent, but they're going to be confrontational. I want this,
Yeah.
Dad. And you're like, no, man, you can't have that, right? I
Yeah.
can't just say, yes, I have. No, that is the same trait that you want to strangle this guy and get that win right here. And that level of aggression that is required in order to do that. Right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of calmness and smoothness, and it's not all aggression, as any good combat sport will tell you. It is not all aggression.
For
Right?
sure.
There's so many other elements. Just
Definitely.
a major element is aggression. Well, same at home. It's just now you need even more calmness, more patience than you do in the ring, for example. But you need a lot less confrontation. But you still need
Yes.
confrontation, because you have to be willing to tell your toddler, man, you can't have that ice cream. There's something I can do about it, right? Now, that's a little bit of a silly example, but it is true, just to try to highlight that point of like, yo, these are all things on a spectrum.
For
The
sure.
same thing to be willing to have confrontation with ice cream is the same thing to have confrontation in a physical fight. It's just to a whole nother degree.
I was gonna say, you know what they say about martial arts? We're all on the spectrum, right? We like getting hit in the head. We like rolling around on the ground with each other. It is though. In all seriousness, it's a spectrum of. It's not as black and white, I think, as a lot of people make it out to be. Like you said, it's our brains are more wired to, like you said, the this or that or this, the either or. And that's why things like, like a logical fallacy like either or flies over some people's heads, because that's how we think, but it's not as simple as that. There's so much gray in the middle there, which, like we were saying before about something like aggression, or a regularly repressed trait like aggression or violence, or a thought like I want to hurt that person. Obviously, you're not going to do that when you are in line at the grocery store and somebody's taking too long to check out. But if somebody is endangering you or your children or your family, if you don't tap into that, it's going to work against you. So it depends on the context, and I think that those things can really empower, especially combat sports athletes, in a domain of fighting somebody. Like, I don't think there's any sport like that to that extent where it's violent. It's a violent sport. It's so focused on that, and to go in there and think that you're going to have complete success with only viewing yourself as this noble, good person, socially acceptable. Like, what you're doing is the antithesis of that. You are you're in a sport where your entire job is to hurt the other person. So to go in there and not have that ability to be like, no, I want to hurt that person. Like, I have a part of me that does want to do that, and I'm going to own that. That's authentic to me. I think it's more harmful. Go ahead. Yeah,
my bad. And not only like
good.
I want to, it's like I'm willing to.
Yes.
I'm willing to. And again, this is the spectrum of aggression. If you're Usain Bolt sprinting 100 meters, okay?
Yeah.
There's a certain level of aggression there, right? But there's so many other characteristics. It's not unidimensional. Just like any good combat sport athlete, if you only compete with aggression, you will get your ass kicked.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely.
Not, right? It's not. And what's interesting about being in a combat sport is So if I find confrontation in the real world, I will dial up my aggression to the furthest extent. Why? Because I'm vulnerable and I don't
Mm,
have the ability to defend myself. So
yeah.
I need aggression.
Right.
I need violence, right? What's interesting is in a day-to-day life, a combat sport athlete does not necessarily need that to handle confrontation
Yeah.
because I'll keep diffusing because I know how to handle my space. I know how to
Mm,
read a guy's body, right? Whereas
mm,
for me, I don't know how to handle space. I don't know how to
yeah.
read a guy's body. I don't know. So I need to attack before I get attacked. Whereas, like any good combat sports athlete would know, most people on earth, they don't really know what they're doing. So if confrontation wants to come your way, you could create your space, you can monitor the situation, and you can act with almost no aggression and just technique. So it's like I'm not even. Whereas me, I need aggression and violence because I don't have technique and capability to understand the situation. So in fact, they're actually being less aggressive than me because I don't have the traits and the skill set in order to
Right.
execute. Right. So, but this is this idea of nuance. This is this idea of like, hey man, there might be an element of violence in combat sports, but every combat sport person I've ever worked with basically cries before they go in that ring or on the mat or in the cage. There's an extreme amount of fear, and as there should be. Why? Well, you're standing in front of another person trained to hurt you, right? It's the most innate, natural version of what a sport is combat sports, right? So we're tapping into something unique, something a little bit different than other sports have, which is that one-on-one element of violence. And it's about respecting, like, you're not going to go in there if I'm just going to be a big violent guy, I'm going to win. No, I have an element, but what are all my other elements? Where's my patience, my calmness, my alertness, my interest?
Exactly.
There's so many. It's just one of many, right?
It's
And
it's not
the more,
it's not. I was gonna say not to cut you
yeah,
off. It's not. It doesn't sound like as simple as I'm putting it. Like you said, it's a complex
yeah,
thing. There's nuance. It's not just I'm tapping into aggression and some BS about I see red and I go in there and do well. Like no, like you see these guys like Alex Pereira, like he has this super aggressive look on his face. He's marching across the cage and he looks like he wants to kill the guy, but he's so calm, he's so calculated, he's measured. So
mhm,
it isn't just I have an alter ego where I tap into this aggression. It's what else do you want to be? I want to be calm with my aggression. I want to pick the exact
mhm,
spot where I want to land this shot. It's calculated. It's not just I'm gonna beat you up, I'm gonna knock you out, I'm gonna do all of this. It's precise. There
mhm,
is patience to it. It's oh no, I'm gonna get you, but I'm gonna take my time and I'm gonna make you suffer. Whatever that might be,
mhm.
there's the darkness to it, but it's not just unregulated, just going
Yes,
out there with like throwing wild. Like you're not a
yeah.
you're not a monster.
Not a
Like
hooligan. Yeah,
you're
you're
a
not a hooligan.
yeah,
Yeah, you're
exactly.
you're a trained professional. And I think you're getting at the point of like it's not singular. There's a primary focus with a bunch of complementary focuses that orbit around it. I like to think of it like a planet with a bunch of moons, right? So it's like I want this thing, and then I like this feeling of aggression, let's just say, of intensity, but then I want to be patient, calm, thoughtful here, right? So all these things. So it's primary with complementary.
As one last thing to wrap up, if you had a message for anybody or a message for more athletes to hear that you do not think is talked about enough, what would you tell the world or these athletes?
First off, I want to say that I respect every elite level athlete's chase. I respect that you're on the chase. I respect that you're on the hunt. Where do we come into play and where does mindset come into play? Is the chase is fantastic. That drive, that motivation, that passion, that persistence, that fire, right? But if you're all chase and you're no build, you will burn out. You will end up in a place that you don't even know. If your eyes are closed and you're just hunting anything for the fact of hunting it, and you're constantly chasing that ceiling, constantly pushing for more and more and more, it's a wonderful experience. I'm not here to take that away from anyone. What I'm here to help athletes do is help them go towards the build instead of chasing that ceiling and jumping at that ceiling and having all this deep desire and only working in that regard. Is how do you calm that down a bit, while keeping that going? And then how do you build a floor? Build a floor that allows you to get closer to that ceiling, build a floor that has a stronger foundation. And I like to think of it like this, Thor. Instead of always chasing the ceiling and pushing, it's build the floor, make it strong enough so that you get stuck, so that you're stuck between your floor and your ceiling. So therefore, bang, I could push through. And that's what we do at CP Mindset. What we do is help you build that floor. What we do is help you make that floor solid, help you create a mindset, a TFA, an experience of the world that every time you get out there, you can have certainty and consistency in what you're going to think and what you're going to feel and what you're going to do. So now I have trust. I have a solid base, and now I could build towards something. When you're all chasing, no build, you don't know where you're going, you're tired, you're exhausted, it's frustrating, it's overwhelming. When you learn how to respect that chase, appreciate that chase, and learn how to build in accordance with that chase, now you're working on your mindset. And the way you build is the things we've been talking about: mental prep, reset, reflections, alter ego. That's just the tip of the iceberg, brother. That's just the primary elements. But that's what my message is to the world. If you want to be mentally tough, awareness, acceptance, and influence of your TFA, build that base of mental tough. Get stuck between your floor and your ceiling, and then push through. Stop chasing that ceiling and instead build towards it, push through after. That's my message.
Fantastic. I love that. I hope everybody can take from that. Last time we spoke, you mentioned working on a book. Where does that process stand right now? Do we have any anticipation on timing? And what themes of this book can the viewers expect?
Everything we talked about today will be in the book, and I'm hoping that it does a good job trying to express my enthusiasm through words. I'm pretty good at expressing it through like verbally, but not on paper. So I'm working on that. But where am I at right now? I'm about a third of the way through. I got my intro, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 flowing. So we got that base down. I anticipate it being out no later than late November, early December. So that would be the latest time. I'm hoping to get it out a couple months before, maybe October or something. But that's my hard deadline. The book is called Now or Never, An Athlete's Mental Guide to Rising the Ranks. It's all about how do I create a mental system, a system of self-regulation that allows me to be able to propel to the next level and get to where I want to go. And then if I happen to be there or get there, how do I thrive there? And it's just this appreciation of the challenge it is to be elite at anything you do. Manage that now or never feeling, and manage that feeling of going from being consumed by the pressures of everything to being immersed in the moment.
I love that, dude. I love that. Nick, I'm very happy we had this conversation. I'm very grateful to have you here. I'm very excited to continue this relationship further. So thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll speak again soon.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Of course.